Yeah, I know. I'll keep my focus. So,
I was just joking.
welcome to the Jimmy Duster Music Channel. Little pre-show discussion going on there that you caught the tail end of a little bit. Today we are talking about our 5 favorite female vocalists. We didn't limit it to a certain genre, so this is sort of cross genre. Whoever we want to go with on this. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We welcome comments. I think I'll start today. I'll give my number 5, and then we'll give your number 5. We'll just go one apiece and go from there. So how's that sound?
Keep in mind, folks, this is all entirely subjective. It's just based upon what we hear and what we love.
Exactly. This is people that we like to listen to. People that, when they sing, makes the hair on our arm stand up. And it may not be your thing, and maybe you haven't heard of these people. Well, it's worth it to go, check them out and search them out in your time. So I know I've gotten a lot of stuff from Jeff and Shannon over the couple of years that we've been doing this show now that, I've grown to really like, and I think vice versa. So we've start with my number 5 here. Came onto the scene probably early 80s. Just has a great rock voice. Started as an opera singer. Has opera chops. Very wide range in her voice. Still comes back to that bluesiness that she can throw in there from time to time. But I'm going with Pat Benatar. And,
great choice.
What's that?
That's a great choice.
Yeah. From our childhood, and to me, this isn't my favorite album of hers, but I think the song "Hell Is for Children" just shows off her vocal chops incredibly. But I mean, her songs, "Heartbreaker" and everything else, and her and Neil, her husband, are still performing and at a very high level. So just a great couple. And Pat Benatar is my number 5.
Well, she's great, and she is an honorable mention for me. Okay, I love Pat Benatar, and my favorite Pat Benatar song is actually "Les Bel Age," which is kind of a deeper cut. That was a single that didn't get all the radio airplay that her earlier singles got, but she's got massive set of pipes, no doubt about it.
Yep.
Okay, my number 5. My number 5. Well, I'm going to do my first 2 out. I'm not going to mention my honorable mentions because they were so close. One, you might as well call these 6 and 7. One was Sade. Just love her vocal delivery, the stuff that she did in the 80s. And I'm an 80s guy. She, as the name Smooth Operator would imply, she has the smoothest vocal delivery. Just love her vocal style. She right on the outside of the top 5, along with my childhood favorite, Blondie. Right on the outside. Blondie was probably what really got me into music. I think she's the greatest American pop vocalist of all time. A lot of things that happened in the 80s and later out of America, they stem right back to Blondie. Started out as punk, but her pop stuff, I think, on this record, which is iconic, Parallel Lines, with, of course, the disco song, A Heart of Glass, the rock song, One Way or Another, really paved the way for a lot of American vocalists in the 80s. Also, I love the Rapture off Auto American, which I used to play over and over and over again. So those are my first 2 out.
She raps on that song too.
What was that?
She raps on the Rapture
too. Yeah,
she's
great. That was like the first song I think I listened to like over and over and over again in my life. So Sade and Blondie, first 2 out. Okay. So yes, I am a child of the 80s. My number 5, it's going to be Annie Lennox. At the end of the day, as much as I love Sade and Blondie, Annie Lennox is my number 5. She probably has what I would call the richest voice of my top 5. Very R&B influenced, She has a very powerful delivery. I also appreciate how, as a younger kid seeing this stuff, she really shook things up. I can imagine, like in Middle America, where we grew up, you might as well call Ohio Middle America, I guess. Seeing someone this androgynous, I mean, she just shook things up, and her style was great. She's got a powerful vocal delivery. "Love Is a Stranger" is one of my favorite songs of the '80s period, by the Eurythmics. I do love "Sweet Dreams." I love "Who's That Girl." I love "Here Comes the Rain Again." All their pop songs are great. And something else about her, she probably has my favorite Christmas song of all time. Her interpretation of "Winter Wonderland." That's maybe put her in the top 5, because I just think it's the greatest Christmas interpretation ever. On Winter Wonderland. Also, I'm not a huge fan of adult contemporary, but the way I actually love her adult contemporary stuff. "Diva" is a great record. I used to listen to it all the time. The song "Why" on there is just a beautiful song, and I have some memories attached to that record, "Diva," also. So based upon her body of work with the Eurythmics being groundbreaking, cutting edge, and having a powerful, rich vocal delivery, I'm going with Annie Lennox, number 5.
Good choice. Yeah, she's a fantastic choice. I had forgotten about her earlier in the week, and when I was driving home from church today, a mix I was playing through Spotify, a song of hers came on. I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot her. How could I forget her?
Yeah, she's great.
And she's certainly in my honorable mentions. Yeah, great choice. So number 4, I don't have anything to show by this artist. But none other than the Queen of Soul, Miss Aretha Franklin.
Great choice.
My cousin. Of course, you got the Respect and You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman and all the hits. But, she even did, a great version of Hey Jude. Just a fantastic version of that. And not to mention her gospel stuff. Just an incredible, powerful voice that could sing anything. So that's my number 4, Aretha Franklin.
And she, of course, was a huge influence on Annie Lennox.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's great choice. Can't argue with that. My number 4, probably one of the 2 best musicians on my list. The best guitar player on my list. I'm going with Joni Mitchell. And this is Court and Spark, I believe from 1974. My 2 favorite Joni Mitchell records are Court and Spark and The Hissing of Summer Lawns. Those 2 records back to back. That's a staggering back to back. I love the earlier stuff too, but Blue is not one of my favorite records by her, other than The River. River, I should say. That's maybe my favorite Joni Mitchell song. It's so beautiful. But as far as album listens go, for me, it's this one, Court and Spark, and also The Hissing of Summer Lawns. Very influential, obviously. Enormous influence on Prince. This is well documented. Also a huge influence on Sonic Youth. Big influence on Led Zeppelin back in the day. Big influence on Maynard James Keenan of Tool as well. It's a really just influenced all these different artists. Probably a big influence on my number 2 pick also. Arguably the best musician on my list. Probably the best musician. Not very experimental also, as she started doing some much jazzier stuff later on with Jaco Pastorius, getting into the later 70s. But yeah, wonderful voice that changed a bit over the years. She started out as a soprano, went into more of a contralto style as the 70s progressed. Massive talent. Joni Mitchell is my number 4.
Yeah, another great choice. I think we're in sync on this one. I can't fault that choice at all. Another one that's in my honorable mentions. I happen to like the Hejira album. Is my favorite, because of Jaco and Pat.
Yeah, and that one gets more experimental. As a Hissing of Summer Lawns has the perfect balance for me between Court and Spark and Hejira. Yeah. Can't explain it. There's something about that record, and it's almost like she has this spontaneous kind of beatnik style poetry that she throws over top of the music. It feels very improvisational, Hissing of Summer Lawns. I really love it.
And her alternate tunings that she uses on
Yep.
guitar, I
That's
mean, she uses some tunings that I think only she can figure out. So
that's why she was such a big influence on
amazing
Sonic.
guitar player.
That's why she was such a huge influence on Sonic Youth. They
Yeah.
loved the way her alternate tunings. Yeah. So and Prince himself has said, can you imagine Prince saying, "How did you learn this chord?" She once said to him, "I learned it from you." Can you imagine Prince saying that to anyone? So
Yeah, really.
yeah, massively influential and a huge influence on my number 2 coming up.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. So, all right, down to our number 3s here. My number 3, someone I heard when I was really young and fell in love with not only her voice but her look and just what she did for music. She came out of that New Mexico girl that came out of the California sound. And for my number 3, I'm going with Miss Linda Ronstadt.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A couple of her albums here. Of course, everyone remembers the one with her on the roller skates that was on a lot of bedroom walls. The generation of kids just before us, that was from the 70s. She performed with the Eagles and, not so much a songwriter as what a lot of these folks are on our list, but just a fantastic interpreter of music. And, she even won a Grammy for her Spanish vocal performance in the 80s or 90s. I forget when that was. Influenced tons of singers, and across all kinds of genres, country and rock, flamenco singing, Hispanic vocal, and just a huge influence. So that's my number 3, Linda Ronstadt.
Great pick. Can't argue with that at all. My number 3 is going to be Billie Holiday. I've never heard anyone who, with the possible exception of Jeff Buckley, who sings every note as if it's the last note they'll ever sing. It's just kind of how she sang. She had a very unique delivery, very improvisational style, was not technical in any way, shape, or form. But her style was so improvisational and her phrasing was so outstanding. A very emotional voice, very heartfelt voice. And, you can look at her whole catalog, everything from like What a Little Moonlight Can Do near the beginning to obviously Strange Fruit, which is a legendary song. One of the best known female vocal performances of all time. And, near the very end on Lady in Satin, she was just pouring her heart out. Unbelievable vocal talent. Not technical, but boy, did she have a way of using this really unique phrasing to convey a very emotional message. My number 3 is going to be Billie Holiday.
Another one of my honorable mentions. So great choice. Number 2. This person is easily the most technical, greatest female singer. She's number 2 on my list, not just for pure talent. If I was going off of pure talent, if this was who the best is, there would be no question it would be this person. I just happen to enjoy, and again, it's our favorites. My number 1, I enjoy a little bit more. Although I could listen to this lady sing all day. And that's Karen Carpenter.
Oh, great pick.
And, of course, we lost her too soon, but, and this is another one of their albums that I have. If you can see that there, maybe not. Yeah, Close to You. And, the song Superstar, the Leon Russell penned hit, just a fantastic job that she does on that. Rainy Days and Mondays, For All We Know, I'll Never Fall in Love Again, We've Only Just Begun, Close to You. tons of hits, and a fantastic drummer as well. A lot of people don't know that, but Karen Carpenter was an incredible drummer. Now, that even though on a lot of their records it's the LA guys, the Wrecking Crew, playing drums on it, there are some songs that she plays drums on, and you can find some YouTube videos of her playing drums, and she's an incredible drummer. And her brother Richard, of course, just an incredible musician as well. But that's my number 2, Karen Carpenter.
Great pick. Can't argue with that. My number 2 is, okay, my final 2 are the most cinematic and theatrical vocalists on my list. And I to me that's subjective, but I think that's accurate. My number 2 is the second most cinematic vocalist on my list, and in my opinion, the second most theatrical, the best soprano who's ever existed to my ears, and that is Kate Bush. She makes this list at number 2 just based upon her eccentricities, her theatrical acumen, and The Dreaming from 1982. This is my third favorite record of 1982, is perhaps the most eccentric mainstream record ever produced. It is brilliant. Then, of course, you've got The Ninth Wave, which everyone's talking about running up that hill. I would suggest everyone listen to The Ninth Wave off 1985's Hounds of Love. That is actually her very finest moment. It's anyone who likes something like, say, 2112 by Rush probably really would appreciate The Ninth Wave. It's a beautiful concept piece. And The Sensual World from 1989, the title track is also a beautiful song. So yeah, just a gorgeous soprano singing voice, very eclectic, quite a bit of imagination. And the second most cinematic vocalist on my list, Kate Bush, is my number 2.
All right. On to our number 1s. My number 1 is a girl who burst onto the scene late 90s, early 2000s. Never really paid much attention to her. Had one song that was a top 40 hit. That I liked the song. I really liked the song a lot that she did then. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I kind of rediscovered her. I heard her singing with Joe Bonamassa, and heard some stuff that she did. And I thought, you know what? I really need to listen to her catalog. And over the past 5-6 years, I've dug deep into her catalog, and she has become just her story and her emotion that she puts into her vocals made her number 1 on my list. And that's the lady behind me here, Beth Hart, on my shirt as well. Beth Hart. Just some of her stuff that I have War in My Mind by her. Doesn't show up very good there. Better Than Home. Fire on the Floor, which is a fantastic song. The tribute to Led Zeppelin that she did, where she does, you can see it here, she does some Led Zeppelin. Well, it's all Led Zeppelin songs. And the funny story was she knew who Led Zeppelin was. She wasn't real familiar with their catalog, and her manager said, you ought to do a Led Zeppelin covers record. So she had to explore their catalog a little bit and learn it, which I thought that was kind of a funny story. But I'm normally not a big covers album guy, but she does a nice job with the Zeppelin stuff. I like her other stuff more. Great clip of her performing with Jeff Beck and Prince and Steven Tyler that you can find on YouTube. Great clips of her with Joe Bonamassa on YouTube. Just a fantastic singer that sings with so much emotion, and the stuff that she's written herself, you can really feel her voice singing the emotion that she's singing with. Saw her in concert last February, and just puts on an incredible show, engages the audience, tells stories between the songs, and and you feel like you're sitting in her living room while she's singing to you. So that's my number one choice, Beth Hart.
Okay, great pick. So I have a question. The performances with Prince and Jeff Beck, were those together or those separate performances?
Together.
Oh, so Jeff Beck and Prince and Aerosmith are all playing with her at the same time?
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm not much of an Aerosmith guy, but I do love Prince, obviously, and I like Jeff Beck, so that would be an interesting interesting thing to see. Okay.
There's stuff with her and Buddy Guy out there. There's just a lot of good Beth Hart videos on YouTube, let's just say.
Okay, my number one, for anyone who knows me, this one's pretty obvious. I wear my heart on my sleeve. And this is no small feat. For me, the most cinematic vocalist that's ever existed, regardless of genre, and I would argue more theatrical than Kate Bush. And there's something about her voice, regardless of the era that she's in. It could be right at the beginning when she was learning to sing and developing her vocal chops, or it could be something like, say, Jigsaw Feeling off the Scream, which was just a total anxiety release, or it could be something as sensual and gorgeous as Sea of Tranquility off her only solo album, Manta Ray. But there's just something about her voice. She pours forth. You were talking about emotion with Beth Hart. I've never heard a vocalist that, to my ears, conveys more emotion. She just pours everything out of herself when she sings, and I love the way she uses her voice as an instrument. I love her writing ability. She's an outstanding writer, as good as any other vocalist on this list. And she just conveys the most emotion for me through her vocals. Great phrasing. Just fantastic vocalist. My number one is Siouxsie Sioux. And this is my favorite record of all time. A Kiss in the Dream House from 1982. It is my favorite album ever recorded. The imagination on this is absolutely unparalleled. But I'm not going to talk about that era. I'm going to talk about 92 to 86, which is an era that I think the mainstream could really appreciate more. Her vocals are so outstanding in this period. They're my favorite vocals ever by anyone. Let's start with Face to Face from Batman Returns. Just gorgeous. Angelic. Her falsetto on this, it's unreal. Just a beautiful song. Then we get into 1991. This was the big hit off Superstition, Kiss Them For Me. Big hit in the US. Kind of Jane Mansfield inspired. I love it. Beautiful video. Her voice is just gorgeous on it. This is Superstition. This is just the CD of this, but I will say some of the deep cuts on this record, though this record is not a masterpiece like the next couple I'm going to talk about, some of the deep cuts on this record, like Drifter. I want to point out the song Drifter. So gorgeous. Her phrasing on this, so elegant. And also Little Sister in The Ghost in You. Just gorgeous songs. And this B-side, Shadow Time, was also on that record, but the B-side to this is called Sea of Light. I have no idea how Sea of Light, which is a B-side, did not get on to the record. One of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. You're basically going from our 1% world right into the 99% world, as a Kabbalist might say. It's that beautiful. It just takes you to a different world on Sea of Light. Her vocals on this, her phrasing. 1988, we go to Peep Show. Probably her most diversified vocal performances and my favorite vocal performances of all time on this record. You've got Peekaboo, the big hit, but you've got the gorgeous, cinematic, delicate, The Last Beat of My Heart, which I would argue is more beautiful than anything Kate Bush ever did. It's very cinematic. It almost has like a Gone with the Wind, Casablanca kind of feel to it. The video is all in black and white. She's got the Louise Brooks bob now. She's completely changed her look. That's a must listen. You've got deeper cuts on this record like Carousel, which has her in her lower register. So she's varying her voice all over the record, showing off everything that she's developed over all the years. Fantastic vocal performances. We go to the covers album, Through the Looking Glass. I'm just going to mention one song on here, and that is Trust in Me, which is a cover of The Snake and Disney's The Jungle Book. Must be heard to be believed. She turned it into something entirely different, making it their own. 1986 is Tinderbox. Gorgeous album cover with a tornado. And this album cover very much predicts what you're going to get inside the record, a whirlwind of turbulent emotions on this album. This one was the big, Cities and Dust is the big track off this record. And it is amazing. Art dance, art pop, art rock, sort of a hybrid, very dance floor friendly. But it is the deep cut on this record, The Sweetest Chill. That must be heard to believe. That is absolutely my favorite vocal performance of all time. Best writing I've ever seen. It is so poetic, the writing on this song. You would have sworn that William Shakespeare or Arthur Rimbaud would have written it. And she puts it to music and just emotes so immaculately on this song. The most beautiful vocal performance I've ever heard. So those are my reasons. And I didn't even mention any of the Creatures stuff, the jazz blues stuff on the Creatures records, which is something entirely different. So looking at all of her vocal skills, her ability to cross genres, her aesthetic, and her ability to vary her voice, my number one is Siouxsie Sioux.
Yeah, and of course I knew that was going to be your choice, and certainly can't fault it. You know, the stuff I've heard, she does a great job going from that more art rock, that more what's theatrical type of song to the almost the torch music type of jazz, a wide range. And I really enjoyed that the Bob Dylan cover that you sent me.
Yeah, I there's nothing. The other four vocalists that I mentioned are all great. Joni Mitchell, Siouxsie, Kate Bush, all incredible writers, but I've never heard a vocalist who can cover as many styles as Siouxsie Sioux.
Yeah.
And that's just something that I hear. And her vocals with brass are that I didn't even get into the Creature stuff. The Creature stuff is unreal in its own right. I didn't even mention that. But I just hear, you know, how you connect with Beth Hart. I connect with Siouxsie. She pours her heart out when she sings. I can't even begin to explain it, but she's my favorite. And I just want to say that she's not goth. So if anyone, I've never, she may have invented the look, but I would never, ever, ever refer to her as goth. She just has an enormous imagination and an abundance of talent.
Yeah. Well, I've got some honorable mentions here. You talked about your first couple out. First couple that I left off my list were Alison Krauss, fantastic bluegrass country vocalist, and Nora Jones was another one that I left off my list, who very versatile in her singing. Some other ones, of course, we got Ann Wilson from Heart. A couple, my personal favorite of theirs, Dog and Butterfly. Bonnie Raitt. Mama Cass. Emmylou Harris. Joss Stone's another one I have down here. Ella Fitzgerald. Joni Mitchell, Annie Lennox. Some newer female vocalists, Lizzie Hale and Taylor Momsen, do a great job. Brittany Howard from the Alabama Shakes, fantastic singer. Amy Lee from Evanescence. Dolores O'Riordan from the Cranberries was tough.
She's great
To leave off the list too. Tina,
yeah, she's great. She'll be coming up as an option.
Susan Tedeschi I had on my list, and one that I think is very underrated is Dusty Springfield. Of course, we all know
Yeah,
something
she's
of a
great.
preacher man, but just an incredible, soulful voice with Dusty Springfield.
And I love her song with the Pet Shop Boys from I think it's '87. What have I done to deserve this? Oh,
Yeah,
she's on that. She makes the song.
yeah.
So I've got a lot of honorable mentions, and these are all incredible vocalists, by the way. Just having to pick five, and I threw the other two out there. My first two out, I already mentioned, were Sade and Blondie. Okay, but I guess I'm going to start with Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie. They kind of go together. I grew up listening to their stuff on the radio. They're both great. They they don't have quite the imagination or the theatricality of some of my vocalists in my top five. That's why they're where they are, but they're fantastic. Landslide is one of the greatest songs ever written by Stevie Nicks. Songbird is one of the greatest songs ever written by Christine McVie. So a couple of my favorite song by each one respectively is not one of the more popular songs, interestingly enough. So yeah, Stevie Nicks, Christine McVie. In a more modern day context, Erykah Badu, who is kind of the modern version of Billie Holiday in a lot of ways. I really love her vocals and her writing. Dolores O'Riordan of the Cranberries, she's fantastic, great writer, very unique vocal style. Aretha Franklin, have to mention her. She's so massively influential. Jeanette Napolitano of Concrete Blonde, very, very underrated vocalist, big, powerful voice. Kind of a hybrid of Ann Wilson and Chrissie Hynde, but I think she's actually a better vocalist than both. Elizabeth Fraser of the Cocteau Twins, the queen of dream pop, honorable mention. Pat Benatar, you already mentioned her. This goes way back to childhood. Massive set of pipes, undeniable. So many great songs. Les Bel Age is actually my favorite Pat Benatar song because I think it's her most theatrical. But she has a lot of great songs, obviously. Ann Wilson of Hard, probably the best hard rock vocalist of all female rock vocalists, I think, for me anyway. Judy Garland, undeniable. Grace Slick, on the strength of Surrealistic Pillow. Doesn't have a great body of work, but that one album really puts her on my honorable mention list. Ella Fitzgerald. Martha Davis of the Motels. I really like those two Motels records. I think they're very, very underrated pop rock band from the 80s. I wanted to mention Martha Davis. Nina Simone. Love her jazzier styles. Nico. That kind of icy, very icy vocal delivery. So cool. She's an honorable mention as well. And lastly, Tina Turner. She has to be an honorable mention. I love Private Dancer. It's fantastic. And lastly, someone whose career was sadly cut short. She passed away sad at the age of 31 years old. That's Minnie Riperton.
Oh yeah.
And I think the big song, of course, that you all know and love is "Lovin' You" from 1975. It's a beautiful song. What a beautiful voice Minnie had. She never had a chance to, fully express herself because her life was cut so tragically short. But she was a 4-octave soprano. Probably had a bit more vocal range than Kate Bush. She just never had time to, do more. I think she only had maybe 3 or 4 albums, but she's fantastic, and I wanted to mention her because she really was special.
Yeah, good choice.
And these are my honorable mentions.
Yep. Great show. You had some great choices on there. Nothing on there that I could even say you're completely off base on this one. So thanks for joining us, everybody. By the way, I think I came across wrong. It's Beth Hart, Jeff Beck, and Steven Tyler doing a tribute to Prince. And I sent you that.
A tribute to Prince?
It's a tribute to Prince. Prince isn't with them. They do Purple Rain. The 3 of them together. I sent you a video of it on your phone. So.
Well, I'm a Luddite, so you might need to send it to my messenger.
That's why I sent it to your messenger.
Here, does anyone want to know why they call me the incorrigible Luddite? I'll show you. There you know. Now you know. Because I don't like cell phones very much.
Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Have a happy Easter, everyone, and stay safe and keep on rocking.
Thanks for watching, folks. Have a great night.